world snooker champion, John Higgins.
Good afternoon, welcome to our tea time edition of Snooker Live. It's been another action-packed day. In fact, the matches have been so tight that we were expecting a climax between Ding Junhui and Michael Wasley, and I'm fairly sure it's just gone 8-all, and they're going to have to be pulled off. They've only got time for one more frame because we've got Mark Selby resuming tonight, and Ricky Walden will be in action against Kyron Wilson as well. So it really is non-stop. And look who's joined us, the 6-time champion of the world, Steve Davis. Steve, thanks for taking time out of a very busy day. It's been dramatic today, hasn't it? I mean, what a comeback by Michael Wasley against Ding, one of the overwhelming favourites for the tournament.
Yes, excitement there, and unfortunately, the first round matches with a 10-frame second session, with tension, perhaps not bang starting on 2:30. There's an interval involved as well. If it gets tight, there is the possibility that the match has to be pulled off, and that it interrupts the flow. It's not ideal, but that is the way it's been always been. So there'll be probably Ding Junhui will be furious that he hasn't converted the match earlier, but that's the way it is because Michael Wasley's been playing fantastic.
Especially starting 6-3 up. There is one result we can bring you up to speed with. Joe Perry started today 6-3 down against Jamie Burnett, but he turned it round. And Jamie still looking for that first Crucible victory. Joe Perry, of course, a semi-finalist here in 2008. He was absolutely delighted to come through that one. Turned it round in fine style, and he really needed to. That's quite a display of character to come from 6-3 down to mop up as comprehensively as he did 10-7.
Yeah, I think a bit of a shock that he went 6-3 down in the first place. I don't think anybody foresaw Jamie Burnett playing to that high standard. Obviously, he didn't produce as high a standard in the second session, or Joe Perry up the pace, whichever it meant that it was a bit of a turnaround. But that is sort of what happens in World Championship long match, long session snooker. You get somebody dominates a session, but there's no guarantee they can dominate the next one. So therefore, there are many matches where they turn around.
Well, Joe was absolutely delighted to get through that one, and of course it tees up a second round meeting with you-know-who, Ronnie O'Sullivan. I went to the post-match press conference and grabbed a word with the gentleman afterwards. Well, a great comeback today by Joe Perry. Joe turning round a 6-3 deficit to book your place in the second round. That's pretty good going.
Yeah, it's always nice to win your first round match here, and from 6-3 down, it's not an uncatchable score, but you really put yourself under the cosh there, and no, I'm pleased with the way I come through it today. I'm stuck with it.
What was the difference today? What clicked that didn't yesterday?
My cue ball control was better today, and I didn't chase the breaks as much. When I run out of position, made sure I played good safety today and tried to keep the pressure on Jamie. And he started missing a few today, which is always nice. He played very well yesterday, didn't miss many, made some big breaks, and made it hard for me. But I played better today, and he probably was just a bit off under the weather.
How much confidence have you brought here to the Crucible from the fact that you've had a good enough season to get you back up to the world's top 16?
Yeah, it's great. I've had a fantastic season, probably my best ever as a professional. So I come here with not as much confidence because every game is tough these days. I could have quite easily lost today. But I come here with the belief that, if things aren't going well, I can turn it round and my game's in good order. And, I've won a lot of matches this season. So whether I win or lose, I just come here with a belief that, I can win no matter who I'm playing.
What's been the reason for such a good year? What started well that you've been able to continue?
Well, I won a tournament right at the start of the season, one of the Chinese PTC events, and I beat Mark Selby in the final. I beat some other good players in that, some top 16 players, and it's just something I haven't done throughout my career, and that just that feeling of winning really made a big difference to me. And I was going into tournaments not just to get to the quarterfinal or semi-final. All of a sudden, I was going into tournaments to knowing that I could win them, and it's just made a massive difference to me.
Okay, you're now through the first round, and you've got the big one. You've got Ronnie O'Sullivan, the defending champion.
Yeah, it doesn't get any tougher. He's the greatest player the game's ever seen. He's probably the only player that we would go and watch play. When we weren't playing ourselves. You can't say enough good things about him. He's the best there's ever been, best there ever will be, in my opinion. But he's human. He's beatable, and I've got to tell myself that. If I play my absolute best, I've been told by other players that sometimes when I play my absolute best in practice, it's unplayable. So I've got to find that form and maybe hope that he's not quite 100% at the races.
Well, you've got to be in it to win the match, and you are, so very well done on your comeback today. We'll see you against Ronnie for round two.
Cheers, Rob.
Well, absolutely the right attitude there from Joe Perry, Steve. You know, he's saying, listen, I'm a pro, I've been to the semi-finals before, I'm not going to let Ronnie O'Sullivan get inside my head, and I've got to believe every time I go out, irrespective of the opponent, that I've got a chance to win, and he might not be on 100% form. When you can sniff that the opponent is on the back foot, it must give you even more confidence for the context.
Well, if we go back through the history of the modern day game, even Ray Reardon, he had what effectively like a sort of a cloak around him, an invulnerability cloak. I felt invulnerable, and Stephen Hendry looked like nobody could touch him, and even if somebody punched him, he was still going to punch back harder. And any one player, Mark Williams, John Higgins, when they're playing their best snooker at their peaks, they've looked like they cannot be touched, that nothing can harm them. Their mental confidence is so strong that nobody can get inside that. And that's where Ronnie O'Sullivan is at the moment, I feel. I think he comes into this year's World Championship a lot more confident than the last one. And I don't think he's got anywhere near the worries about how he's going to play. I think he's going to be very tough to break down. It's going to take a superhuman performance by anybody to actually dominate him on the table.
Well, we're going to wind back the clock now, and hopefully you'll enjoy having a look at the final colours, because today is the 17th anniversary of the world record 147. Unbelievable. Back in 1997, 5 minutes and 20 seconds. And we're going to very much enjoy having a look at those colours. Oh, it's not there, but we can just talk about it anyway. So, will it ever be done? Sorry about that. You can look it up on YouTube, by the way. It's had millions and millions of views. 5 minutes, 20 seconds in 1997 on this day. Steve, will 520 ever be beaten by anybody?
Well, obviously, every time you say that record books can't be beaten, somewhere down the line, if we play snooker long enough, somebody's going to be playing to this level. And Ronnie O'Sullivan, in his youth, was obviously very quick. I don't necessarily think he's any faster now. I think perhaps he's got a bit more of a sort of a wiser head on his shoulders. But from my perspective, that's the problem for when you play Ronnie O'Sullivan, is that not only can he outplay you, but he can reel off the frames so quickly that what can happen is that you're in shock. You're sitting in your chair watching, and before you know it, you're 3 or 4 frames down, and you really haven't got going. But he was probably a little bit faster back then than he was now, just for the sort of the bravado of it.
An amazing moment. I think everybody who got a ticket that afternoon will certainly have been holding on to that one. A moment of snooker history. So, we've talked a lot about Ronnie, and we've talked a lot about how the game is developing. But how fascinating that we've got two, I hope they won't mind me referring to them as this, two golden oldies rolling back the years. Ken Doherty, absolutely delighted to beat Stuart Bingham. And what a performance so far by the Angles against John Higgins. He leads 6-3. That match comes out for a conclusion tomorrow. Great start from Alan as well. And amazing if Doherty and McManus were to meet in that second round.
Well, yes, I mean, just because the game is played by a lot of great young players these days, there are the occasional player that can produce, rolling back the clock, rolling back the years. Ronnie O'Sullivan at the age of 37 and John Higgins are still sort of there or thereabouts. But once you get in your 40s, it seems like the game gets more and more difficult. That's when I had problems, I feel. I think that's when Stephen Hendry started to have problems. For whatever reason, it's not a physical game, but perhaps your body is slowly losing a little bit of coordination, a little bit of concentration. Whatever it is, something goes. So any time a player starts to produce some excellent snooker in their 40s, I think it's got to be applauded. Ken Doherty was fantastic, I think, in his first round match. He really did take the game by the scruff of the neck in the end against Stuart Bingham. And Alan McManus today, well, it could have been different. At one stage, John Higgins looked like he was throwing caution to the wind and was just going for 147 breaks with a view to the 25,000. At 6-1, I think he thought he'd lost it.
Well, I mean, there is still some life in that match, and John, of course, cannot be written off, but brilliant to see the likes of Alan performing so well. I think he made his debut back in 1991. It's a long time.
Yeah, but I think, obviously there was a psychological bit going on in that match, walking out with the tartan trousers on. John must have gone, I wish I'd have thought of that. Or perhaps not. I don't know. I don't know if they're the tweed ones. They must be quite scratchy and itchy.
Well, the rumours are that he's not wearing the right belt. So people were watching, certainly in the press room, looking to see whether there was any issues.
I didn't spot a sporran.
No, he's definitely not wearing a sporran. Okay. I thought at one stage, as the camera panned down before he came out, I wondered whether it might be a kilt.
Unless he's wearing the sporran inside the trousers, but that can get even scratchier.
Excuse me, Steve, you just put me off. Okay, so listen, let's touch on you just for a moment before we finish. You very generously said you're not going to enter Q School because you don't want to take an opportunity away from someone else, and that's exactly what we'd expect from a man of your class on and off the table. But Barry's going to be making a decision, as are the World Snooker Board, about a tour card being available for you and being available for Stephen. If offered, would it be graciously received? And if so, would we get to see you on the big stage going for the qualifiers next season?
Well, it's quite a complex subject, as I'm sure you're aware, and there's lots of views from different parties, which I think are all valid. And yes, if offered, I would play, but not in every event of the season, because I do feel that for the last 3 or 4 seasons, guaranteed, I've been part-time, or rather, I've been treating it as a hobby. Even if I've played in all the events, it's a hobby for me. If you look at the prize money that I've won in the last 2 years, and anybody wins around that 64 to 70, that prize money, in a tax man, in the accountant, your accountant's eyes, they go, well, you're not really making a great deal after tax and after travelling expense and everything. So it's a hobby for me. It's a hobby for Stephen Hendry. Should Jimmy White drop off the tour, I think he'd perhaps have more of a professional outlook and want to play in all the events of the season. But I think it must be said that you've got to make sure that if you are going to start giving any type of exemptions or whatever you call them to some of the players from the past, that everybody within the game is happy that somebody's not getting squeezed out because of it. That actually it makes sense not only on business level but also from a competitive sort of understanding of how the game is. And that's a tough thing. You won't please everybody. There will be people that will have grievances one way or the other. But they have a board meeting. World Snooker have a board meeting. I think it would be funny to be there, because I think regardless of the outcome, I'm not worried one way or the other. If it happens, yeah, lovely. If it doesn't, I can play in the PTCs. If I want to play in Q School next year, then I can have a go. This year I think it's too early. I'd like to play on my 60th birthday as a full season.
Oh, wow.
My father will be, I think he's trying to get to, he's 87. We were playing snooker recently. We were picking the balls out, and he went, do you know what? He said, I'm going to try and get to 90. And I went, are you? Great. I said, if you're going to try and get to 90, then I'm going to try and be on the tour when I'm 60. I didn't know I'd drop off, but it doesn't mean to say I can't be on the tour for the year when I am 60 years old.
Wow.
So long term, I've not given up with the challenge. That would be that.
Action against the debutante Kyron Wilson. Much more drama to come, many more talking points. But for now, the headline is Steve Davis will play a full season when he's 60. For tonight's YouTube Live is good night.
A genius at work. World Snooker Champion John Higgins.